Phase 5, the Catalyst. We've come a long way along our journey to a spiritual awakening. We've done inner work that on a cultural level is unheard of. We've dug down deep and found the fears which cause us to react to the outer environment instead of responding from the guidance of our connected self. The things which keep us trapped in the illusions of the world. Now we come to the part of the journey where we begin to walk in oneness with God. This may not be evident from a reading of this 10th step. Continue to take personal inventory, and when we are wrong, promptly admit it. So how does this keeping tabs on ourselves bring us closer to God? By showing you who or what you are not. In Richard Rohr's book, Breathing Underwater, he suggests that the soul and consciousness are one and the same. I like to use the word awareness as there are many forms of consciousness. The Buddhist meditative practice of the observer is one in which we begin to move beyond thought into awareness itself. It is within awareness that thought arises, and this is what the practice of this phase moves us into, awareness. Continue to take personal inventory. We watch ourselves, our actions, our thoughts, and where the thoughts arise. We do not judge ourselves, we observe. And if we do judge, we observe ourselves judging and become willing to release it. As we practice this, we become increasingly seated in the observer, in awareness itself. We begin to move from the neural pathways of the ego's fear-based thought system into the awareness of the soul. We become again as children. And when we are wrong, we promptly admit it. This does not necessarily mean admitting it you're wrong to another person. It is far more important that we are able to admit to ourselves when we are wrong. Part of the ego's method of self-preservation is to justify its fear-based thought system. This keeps our consciousness mired in illusion and delusion. If we harm someone, we make an amends, but we can be wrong without harming another. Here, I substitute when we deviate from conscious contact for wrong, because that is when our actions drift from God's perfection. This deviation will become easier to observe as we practice the next phase and improve our conscious contact with our higher power. In this way, we can feel when our contact has been compromised and know why. So when we are wrong, we use the tools we have learned in the Phase 2 inventory to trace it to its source. And this is where the dynamic of the key from Phase 3 and the catalyst, Phase 5, comes into play. Identify the fear-based thoughts and actions that move us from the coherent state and become willing to let them go. Anger, greed, lust, self-seeking, whatever the case may be, become willing to release it to God. If the hold is strong, then pray for the willingness to release it. If the hold is extra strong, then pray for the willingness to be willing. Then turn to God by breathing into the heart center and connecting with the expansive, energetic presence there, establishing a state of heart-mind coherence. That connection centers us in present moment awareness, where conscious contact is a reality and our shortcomings have been removed. Through this process, we are rewiring neural pathways, called neuroplasticity, using the ego as a catalyst or trigger to function in conjunction with higher mind. This is passage 98 from the Lachlan French Thomas-approved translation of the Gospel according to Thomas. Achieving the expansive divine awareness requires personal fortitude and persistence, because a person must eradicate the ego's embedded mental patterns and personality habits that hide our true awareness from view. But this eradication of ego patterns is accomplished by looking to our inner fire to burn these patterns out of our daily life. Your fortitude and persistence is focused inward. This inner focus will do the eradicating of our ego patterns. The small willpower of the ego mind, when it's directed towards ending its own habits, is not where we find the power to transcend. That power is found in our divine soul. So this person practices utilizing incisive discernment into his own nature to discover its currents and shadows, to find his weaknesses and temptations. He brings all his powers of focus into the home of his divine breath awareness, to know as much about himself as he does about his profession. This way, he can live each moment freely without being run by the ego's agenda. He practices employing a decisive will to focus his attention on divine being within, and in doing so will delete his ego's ingrained habits one by one, so as they are observed in his consciousness. He does this to develop excellence in his life, striking death blows to his old habits and old identifications, such as pessimism, fear, laziness, which only serve as roadblocks to transformation. Then one day, his ego identification is simply eliminated altogether.